The glass walls of Orion Tech reflected the city like a crown of steel and light. And inside that crown sat Evelyn Cross, a woman the media loved to call the coldest billionaire in Silicon Valley. She had built her empire from nothing, survived betrayals that would have crushed weaker hearts, and learned one rule above all others: people reveal their true selves when pressure is applied. That belief guided every decision she made, especially with employees. Evelyn didn't trust resumes or smiles. She trusted tests. Silent ones, ruthless ones. And this morning, as she stood outside the HR office watching through the glass, her eyes were fixed on a man who didn't even know his life was about to be shaken. Daniel Reed sat alone in the waiting area, shoulders slightly hunched, hands folded neatly on his lap. He wore a faded blue shirt, carefully ironed, the cuffs fraying just enough to tell a quiet story of long use. On his phone screen was a photo of a little girl, 6 years old, missing one front tooth, grinning like the world had never taught her pain. Daniel glanced at the photo, smiled softly, then locked the phone and slid it back into his pocket just as HR called his name. Evelyn's assistant leaned over. "That's the single father I mentioned. Top performer in logistics. Never late, never complains." Evelyn's lips curved faintly. "Everyone complains eventually," she said. "Let's see how long it takes." Daniel entered the room. The HR manager avoided eye contact, voice stiff, rehearsed. "Daniel, this won't take long. Due to internal restructuring, your position is being terminated effective immediately." The words landed like a gunshot in a quiet room. Daniel blinked once. No argument, no raised voice, no desperate bargaining. Evelyn leaned forward behind the glass, intrigued. "Terminated?" Daniel asked calmly. "Yes, you'll receive 2 weeks severance. Security will escort you to collect your belongings." 1,000 thoughts exploded in Daniel's mind. Rent due in 9 days, school fees, medicine for his daughter's asthma. But his face didn't betray the storm. He nodded slowly, stood up and straightened his shirt. "I understand," he said. "Thank you for the opportunity." The HR manager looked surprised. "That's all?" Daniel paused at the door. For a moment his eyes softened, not with anger, but something deeper. "May I say one thing?" he asked. HR hesitated. "Briefly." Daniel nodded. "Whoever made this decision, I hope they're doing okay. Decisions like this usually come from pressure. I don't hold it against anyone." And then he left. Silence filled the room. Evelyn Cross froze. No outburst, no accusation, no collapse. Something about that response hit her harder than any shouted insult ever could. Security escorted Daniel to his desk. Employees pretended not to watch, but every eye followed him. He packed slowly, his mug with "World's Best Dad" printed on it, a small notebook filled with handwritten schedules, and a tiny pink hair clip he kept as a good luck charm. As he turned to leave, a junior employee whispered, "I'm sorry." Daniel smiled. "It's okay. Things have a way of working out." Evelyn watched from the balcony above. For the first time in years, her chest felt tight. Minutes later, she ordered, "Bring him to my office." Daniel was confused when security redirected him upstairs to the top floor, the place employees only saw in company videos. He stood in front of Evelyn Cross, the woman whose name could open or destroy futures. She studied him closely. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then you know I approved your termination." "Yes." "Why didn't you argue?" Daniel exhaled. "Because arguing doesn't change decisions already made. And because I have a daughter watching how I handle loss. I'd rather teach her dignity than anger." The words landed like a crack through ice. Evelyn stood up slowly. "You realize this job was your stability?" "Yes," he replied honestly. "But my character is my responsibility." For the first time in decades, Evelyn Cross didn't know what to say. She had fired people before, hundreds of them. She had seen tears, rage, threats, even lawsuits, but never grace. Never this quiet strength. And suddenly, the test she was so proud of felt cruel. "You were being tested," she admitted. Daniel nodded. "I figured." And I failed?" he asked gently. Evelyn's throat tightened. "No," she said. "You passed something I didn't even know I was failing." She turned toward the window. The city no longer looking like a crown, more like a mirror. For the first time, Evelyn saw herself clearly. A woman who had confused toughness with humanity. A leader who had forgotten why she started building in the first place. "Daniel," she said softly, "what would you do if I offered you your job back?" He didn't answer immediately. He thought of his daughter, her laughter, her trust. "I'd accept," he said, "but only if no one else loses theirs for another test." That was the moment Evelyn Cross felt something break inside her. Not weakness, something better, something human. But if this story moved you even a little, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because the next chapter will change everything. What Evelyn does next, how Daniel's life turns, and why this single moment rewrites a billionaire's legacy forever. The office felt different now, heavier somehow, as if the walls themselves were listening. Evelyn Cross stood near the window, her reflection overlapping the city skyline, while Daniel remained seated across from her desk, calm yet alert, a man who had learned long ago that stability was never guaranteed. For years, Evelyn had believed power was proven through control over people, outcomes, emotions, but the silence between them exposed a truth she had avoided. Real power was revealed in restraint. She turned back toward Daniel, studying the lines on his face. Not of bitterness, but of responsibility, the kind etched by sleepless nights and quiet sacrifices. No resume could ever capture. "You know," she said slowly, "when I was your age, I lost everything in one day. My father's business collapsed. Employees begged, cried, blamed him. I watched him break." She paused, her voice tightening. "I promised myself I would never be weak like that." Daniel listened without interrupting, not out of fear, but respect. "And somewhere along the way," Evelyn continued, "I forgot that strength doesn't have to look like cruelty." She sat down, something she rarely did during confrontations, lowering herself to eye level.